Hey, this is Rob Swanson with the Real Estate Mogul Show. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Rob Swanson back here. Welcome to 2024. This is our second show into the new year, and this is going to be a good one. We've got a partial crew in the studio. Last time we had a partial crew, Mike was here, and Henry, you were out, and you were not here to defend yourself. So, it was...
I haven't actually went back and listened to that episode yet. So
open season on Henry. It was great. But now Mike's gone, so we can go open season on Mike. Should we do that today?
I'm down. Down
no,
for
let's
that.
not do that. That would be just terrible. All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another show, the Real Estate Mogul Show. We're going to be diving into this today. We've got some really cool things to talk about. We're going to be talking about the concept and the approach to building a wholesaling business, a wholesaling operation in your local backyard or virtually. And, I can go back 20-some years in my real estate investing business. And before it was known as virtual wholesaling, before it was known as remote investing, I was investing across the country in multiple markets. And so I have had the opportunity and the advantage of going through the cycles of real estate and experiencing that in multiple markets all over the place, all across the country, East Coast to West Coast, Canada to Mexico, and sort of feeling and experiencing how those market cycles change or show up differently city to city. Real estate is a very localized thing, and yet a door is a door is a door. A house is a house is a house. And so once you figure that out and you build a bit of a strategy to understand the local nuances, you put yourself in a position where the country and the world becomes your oyster. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, as we jump into a little bit of the check-in, Henry, you got something cool happening today. Second work day at the day that we're recording this of the new year. What's happening in your world?
Yeah, got first wholesale deal of 2024. I think it was funny because the last time I was on the podcast, we talked about full steam ahead December to make sure that you jump into January and not be turning the wheels and not close the deal till February. So I kind of took that seriously and made sure that I had offers out, just deals in and around the pipeline. So yeah, that's under contract through, I think, late December and then closing in January. So
yeah, because I remember that conversation where we literally talked about, there's different schools of thought. There's different people. Some people get into the holidays and they kind of take the foot off the brake. They rest and recover. And, I talked about being a big proponent of that. You've got to reset. And then other people push and hustle right up to the end, thinking that they're going to lose out. And I'm not really a big believer in balance, but there's a little bit of a balance there where you've kind of got to do both. You've got to push and you've got to reset and refresh at the same time. And our conversation was exactly that. You said, hey, I know that if I don't do the things in my business today that set me up for early 2024 success, I'm going to start the year slow. Yeah. And so you did that.
Yeah, you kind of have to compartmentalize your mind going into the holidays where, like you said, you got to spend some time with your family, but you also want to close 2 to 3 wholesale deals in January. So you got to have stuff setting up. So I thought that was interesting. And on that note, it was kind of harder in December to find buyers and people that were working and wanted to look at deals. So you almost had to work a little bit harder. But you found the people that had the same mindset as you, because they were like, I'm not going to go into January and not have a project underway or my next rental purchase or something like that. Right. So you actually found a couple of those people that had that same mindset that were still actively buying in December. But on the other side, there were a lot of people that, were not talking to me, not getting back to me. And it was a little harder.
So backing up, I know we talked about, and you said that what you were going to do was kind of queue up the 2024 launch with your business. So you were going to do that from early December through December. What did you do? And then I want to specifically talk about where you got this deal, because I think that this is a very unique and interesting one for people to hear, that that relationships matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So for deals in the pipeline for January, I have mail queued up to hit right now, basically.
Yep.
So I queued it up using FreedomSoft's mail sequence. I made I won't use it again, maybe until next December, but I made a sequence to where I could start it with that list, but it didn't send until January. So I set it up, I ran it in December, and then holidays.
Yep.
But I knew that the system's going to send it starting around January, so that calls are going to start coming in this week, next week, and then I'll have some deals in the pipeline for January.
Yep.
This one, however, was a little bit before that. I talk about it a lot, just creating networking and connection in your market that you're wholesaling in. This one actually came from my title company that I have a really good relationship with. Deal had fallen through at closing. Seller was still motivated. The closing agent that I usually work with called me and said, hey, they're ready to go. It's ready to go at title here. Do you have a buyer? Do you want to buy it? And I said, I'll look into it. And I made an offer well under what it was going to sell for. And they took it because they were so motivated.
Yep.
And found a buyer within about a week or so. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So two things. One we'll circle back to, and that is the direct mail system, the Mail Now system, which is sequence based. I'm going to circle back to that in a second. And number two, relationships. So over the last year, and we talked about, so at the Mogul Live event that we did in, what was that, November? At the Mogul Live event in November, you and I sat on stage and we kind of talked about your journey of joining FreedomSoft, being exposed and introduced to real estate investing, and then sort of jumping in and dipping your toes in, and then slowly the freight train picking up some speed to the point that in December you knew enough to say, I got to queue some things up here and launch into 2024. Well, through that process, in the remote market, which is the topic for today's show, that you're primarily investing in and building your rental portfolio in, you have relationship and you have a reputation now of being a deal closer. You close deals and people know it. And so this deal gets to the finish line, and I think one of two things happened. I think you got the phone call because you have a track record of regularly and consistently closing deals. You have a track record of, in that process, driving those closings, but doing it in a way that you've built relationship with the closer. And then that closer got to the point where she has this deal blowing up, and she's got probably a couple of dozen investors that she could call. And whether she called you only or whether she called you plus a couple of dozen others, you had the mindset and the ability to say, it doesn't matter what it was currently selling for. Let me make an offer that I know can get across the finish line. And this is the key point I'm making. Too many people waste too much time and have too high of a fallout rate of their deals because they make the offer that they think the seller wants. They make the offer because they don't know how to comp things correctly. What you did is you looked at the deal and said, I can't pay what it was falling out at. I've got to pay a different price. The seller was motivated. They accepted your discounted offer, and you got it across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of people would do in that scenario is say, well, I'm just next up to bat, and now I can wholesale it.
Yep.
But I'm just going to offer a very similar, slightly lower to what it was about to sell for.
Yep.
But I still wouldn't consider that a proven comp yet because it didn't close.
Right.
The buyer didn't close. They didn't show up. So something must have went wrong, or the price wasn't proven, or something could have happened. But I ignored that completely. Yep. It was math. Like you say, house is a house is a house. Math is always the math, and and then you just make the offer.
Yeah, because people also would have thought, there's a couple of schools of thoughts here, right? You could have gone in and said, oh, I'll bet she's called a dozen other investors. I got to give them the same price and hope that they pick me. Hopefully that I'm the one that gets the deal. And so you could have had this sort of built-in mental peer pressure to just make them the offer that you think the seller wants. But you didn't do that because you've been trained to think about it's not about giving the seller what they want. It's about paying what you can pay, paying the price you can pay. And so you went in and said, I don't care. Yeah. I don't care what it's been. I don't care who I'm competing against. I don't care if one of the other dozen guys or gals gets the phone call and says, well, I'll give you the full price that you had before. And you said, well, no, I got to give you a discounted price. And you got beat out. You didn't care if you got beat out by that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I essentially I didn't pay for the lead. So if I didn't get it, I didn't get it. But I knew I wasn't going to go in at the same price and then spend all of December grinding my gears trying to find a buyer and just hearing everyone complain about the price. So it was, here's the price. I know 3 people that I'm going to call if I get it for this price. And that was the story that I told them. Yep. And I think speed was another thing. They called me. I had paperwork to them before the end of the day. Yeah.
So this is a reminiscent story of, oh, man, this goes back to probably 20 years ago, 21 years ago. I think this was 2003. I always like to go back to these old stories because for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's relevant to say, I've been doing this for a long time, but the remote virtual conversation that we're going to get into in a minute, this is where this became real to me, okay? And I was wholesaling houses in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we had done what we called a 100K challenge. So 5 of my buddies and I rented a big house, a couple luxury cars, and launched in Nevada, and we went and in Las Vegas, and we said, can we make $100,000 in a month? Well, post that, we made $94,000. Post that, I continued my wholesaling operation in the Las Vegas area for a while. I dropped direct mail, and I got a lead. And this guy, the lead came in, and remember, this is 20-some years ago. This is before. There's no CRM. There's no technology to help me do any of this, right? Comping deals was a big deal. There was no Zillow. There was no nothing. And so this lead comes in on a Sunday afternoon. My wife and the kids were out somewhere doing something. I don't remember where they were, what was going on. But I had nothing to do. So normally I would have been with the family, but on a Sunday afternoon, the lead comes in. I pick up the phone. I call the lead back, and I'm like, I got nothing else to do. I might as well just call the lead. But I also kind of didn't want to do it. So I went in with the mindset and the mentality of, I'm going to be very direct, very on point, very I don't care if I get this deal or not. I don't care what this deal is. So I think that this guy is, well, actually, because he said on the voicemail, I've got a house in Hesperia, California. I was wholesaling in Las Vegas. I had no idea where Hesperia, California is. I have no idea what real estate in Hesperia, California is like. And I had no tools or technology back then to understand it, right? And so that's why I went into this conversation. If he would have said, I've got a deal in Las Vegas, I probably would have had a different mindset going in. He had a deal in Hesperia, which I knew nothing about, or he had a house in Hesperia. So I called the guy, get on the phone with him, and I said to him, hey, I'm calling you back. You called. It looks like you called off of one of our postcards, and you've got a house, it sounds like, in Hesperia, California. Tell me a little bit about the situation. Why are you selling? And so he proceeds to tell me, and it was on the 117 block of, or 11700 something block of Bryant Street in Hesperia. And I remember that 21 years later. And so he says, yeah, and again, remember, I know nothing about this house, nothing about this market, nothing about this area. He says, I've got this house. It's vacant. Nobody's lived there for over a year. And I owe my brother $3,000. And I got to sell this house so I can get the money to pay my brother back. My mindset in this moment was not to follow my script. My mindset was not to build rapport. My mindset was to get straight to the point, make an offer, and this deal either works or it doesn't, because I know nothing about Hesperia and I really don't care, right? And so he tells me the deal. I said, okay, well, what do you think the house is worth fixed up? He said, probably $175,000, $180,000. I said, okay. How much do you think it needs to get fixed up? He goes, I was living in it a year ago. I moved out, and it's been sitting vacant since. Locked up, vacant. I have been by there. It hasn't been vandalized. Nobody's broken in. So it was my stuff in there. I moved out. I didn't clean it. I'm like, okay, so it works. Everything runs, right? It runs. Everything's fine. It was, I lived there. And I said, okay, well, so I'm gonna figure in my mind. I'm thinking I'm gonna figure $5,000 to $7,000, maybe, something like that. I'm just gonna put some math on repairs. And I said, well, let me ask you this: what do you owe? And he says, I owe $100,000. No, it was 103. I owe $103,000. I said, okay, well, and you need $3,000 to take care of your brother? He goes, yeah, I got to pay him back. I said, well, how about this? I give you $103 to pay off your loan. I pay all the closing costs. I take care of repairs. You have no additional costs. And I give you $103 for the purchase price plus $3,000. So $106,000, and I take care of everything else. Would $106,000 work for you? He said, yeah, man, that would work. How fast could you close? And I said, well, next 21 to 30 days. I said, we got to get title work done. I got to verify that you're telling me that what you're telling me is real, and yada, yada, yada. So this is before the days of the FreedomSoft document generator, right? I didn't have my paperwork loaded up where I could click a button and it writes my contracts for me. I didn't have that. So I had to write the agreement, and then I faxed it. This is what I ended up doing. I faxed it to the title company, okay? Fax, F-A-X, which is the abbreviation for F-A-C-S or S-C, like fax. That doesn't even work. The spelling on facsimile to fax doesn't
I've probably sent one fax
in your whole life.
My whole life, maybe one or two.
That's pretty funny. So here's what I did. I faxed the agreement over to, back then it was like a mailboxes, etc. There was a local mailboxes, etc. that was open on a Sunday. I faxed the paperwork over to him on a Sunday afternoon, and I said, "Can you?" And he's in Las Vegas, so he's living in Las Vegas. That's how he got my postcard on this house in Hesperia. I did not send direct mail to Hesperia. He lived in Vegas, had a deal in Hesperia, which I had nothing to do with. I found a mailboxes, etc., a few blocks from where he was living in Vegas. I faxed my paperwork over to him. He signed it, faxed it back to me. Sunday afternoon, I'm under contract, $106,000, and I'm paying closing costs. It needs $5,000 worth of work, and it's worth $175,000. Pretty sweet little deal. Well, that afternoon, I got on, back then, I think it was the early days of Craigslist. I got on Craigslist, and I got on the early days of the Google search engine, and I searched "We Buy Houses, Hesperia, California." And then I went to Craigslist, and I looked up all of the investors that were posting to buy houses in the gigs section or in the services section of real estate on Craigslist. And I built a list of maybe half a dozen to 10 buyers in Hesperia, and I started calling them. And I got a hold of this lady, and she said, yeah, I'm an active investor. I'm buying deals all the time. She said, tell me what you got. And I told her exactly what I got, and she said, I want it. Don't call anybody else. She said, I will buy that. And what I did is I marked it up $6,000. So I assigned her my contract for $6,000. So she's into it for $112,000 plus closing costs. $5,000 worth of work. She's into it for $120,000, let's say. And she's got a $175,000 house. Now, fast forward to me today. There's two things that go through my mind as I think back to this. Number one, pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. So I always remember that, because the second piece of what goes through my mind is I left money on the table, right? I think I sold it too low. Like, I gave her too good of a deal, and yet at the same time I made money.
Yeah.
So
very quick too.
Very quick. Exactly. So here's what I did with her. So I'm under contract, but I don't have a title company in Hesperia. I don't know a title company in Hesperia. And I didn't know if she was for real. I thought she was. But what I told her on Sunday afternoon was, who do you typically close with? And without hesitation, she said, I close with Jenny at Prestige Title, or whatever she said, right? She gave me the name of her closer and the title company and the phone number, like, without hesitation. So that gave me confidence that she was a legit buyer, actively buying. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fax over tomorrow morning to the title company the paperwork, the agreement that I have, the assignment contract for you to sign. And what I'm accustomed to is receiving my full assignment fee up front. Does that work for you? And she said, no problem. So I said, you go in tomorrow before noon, meet with Jenny, sign the paperwork, hand her a certified check for the $6,000 assignment fee. Jenny signs it, faxes it all back to me, and now we're done. And I literally had maybe 2.5, 3 hours into this whole deal. The parallel between what your deal that's closing today, as of the day of this release a week ago, right? The deal that you're closing, you went in and said, I'm just going to run the math. I'm not going to have any emotion. I'm going to make the offer. Like, all of these third-party things that could affect your decision-making and your pricing of the right price or the right offer, you just pushed them to the side and said, here's the offer that I need to make. That's the same thing that I did in Hesperia. And I just pushed all of the other stuff aside. I'm like, I don't know that much about Hesperia, so I'm going to get, if it's going to be a deal, it's going to be a deal. And I just went straight to the offer that I knew would work for me. I figured that with as much margin as I had, if the seller was telling me the truth, this was going to be an easy deal to get across the finish line if I made the offer lowball. If I would have offered the seller, 100, because it didn't need much work and yada, yada, if I would have offered 130, 132,000, and I was trying to flip it for 140, then that deal would have been a whole lot harder to get across the finish line.
You're grinding with buyers there a little bit harder.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just went way to the extreme of, would you take what you owe on it plus $3,000 so you can pay your brother back? Because I knew the pain the seller had. And I knew that the only way to get this deal across the finish line in a city that I know nothing about was going to be to have a really great deal.
You also had like that no stress Sunday afternoon mindset.
Right.
It's like, what's the worst that can happen
Yeah.
if I offer 106? He's going to say no, and then now we can start countering if you want, I guess. But,
Right.
I mean, he sounded pretty motivated.
Yeah, he was motivated. And so here's the conversation and why I tell this story. The reason I'm telling the story is because a lot of times people come to us, and I've been investing virtually. That has been my predominant investment thesis from early in my real estate investing career. It's kind of, I had the opportunity to travel the country early in my career, do some coaching for a big nationwide seminar company, and I saw market after market after market after market. Every other week, I dropped into a new city. And I've told those stories in the past. But what that allowed me to do was to see how different markets respond at different times, what the opportunity in different markets is, what type of deal structures work. There's deals in every market at all times, but there are strategies that work better in certain markets at certain times. And that was what I learned early in my real estate investing career. So people tend to come to us, and a lot of times through the Real Estate Mogul Academy, one of the things that people join the Academy for is to do two things. Number one, learn how to make money quickly, so generate cash, but do it in an efficient way where they're not locked into their local market. They want to invest virtually. They need to invest virtually. They've seen us talk about investing in multiple markets and picking up what we call the cream off the top, identifying easy profit cities, and then skimming the cream, the easy deals off the top of those markets. This deal that you just are, closing, and I don't know that you told us how much you're making on this deal yet.
It was $4,500. So, man, I don't remember the numbers, but it was a duplex and sort of like your attitude. When they told me the address, I knew the zip code, and in my mind, I already said, "Oh, I already know where I need to be at. I know what buyers will complain, who won't," and so again, just straight shooter offer. I think it was like $75K offer, and then whatever that $81K sell.
Got it. Yeah. So $4,500 on this easy cream off the top deal. Okay, my deal in Hesperia, I made $6,000, right? And so here's where we're going to go with this conversation. There's two approaches to wholesaling, and over the 20 years that I've been doing this business and teaching this business, both schools of thought have created their camps of evangelists, right? The believers in one camp or another. One camp says, I'm going to be in one local market, and I'm going to go as deep as I can with as many marketing techniques and deal strategies and deal structures and exit strategies as I can. So I'm going to go squeeze the blood out of the turnip in a single local market. Mm-hmm. That's one camp.
Like, be the guy there.
Be the guy.
We have tons of FreedomSoft users that are this guy.
Yeah.
To the point where you could say an address in every single county, and he'll know who lives there because he's talked to him before.
Right.
That's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you've got the evangelist camp on the other side, which says, I'm going to invest nationwide. I'm going to operate a nationwide wholesaling business. I don't care where the lead comes in from, if the seller is motivated, and if I can offer and get accepted at the right price, I can either close on it, take it down myself, or I can flip it. Two extreme schools of thought, because that guy on the second extreme says, I'm going to do a deal in Rochester, New York today. I'm going to do a deal in Hesperia, California tomorrow. I'm going to do a deal in Bismarck, North Dakota next day. Denver, Memphis. Like, he's all over the place. But he's just doing the easy cream deals off the top. The lay down leads, right? Whereas the other guy is diving deep and trying to teach his acquisitions team or himself new strategies, better negotiation, yada, yada, yada. Some of the best deals that I've ever done in my life, I didn't negotiate. I knew what it was. I made the offer. The seller was motivated. We put a deal together. They got their problem solved. I solved it, and for solving it, I made money. Hey friends, Rob Swanson here. Let me jump in and talk to you really quick about the Real Estate Mogul Academy. You might be sitting back listening to this and saying, how do I get in proximity with these guys? How do I have these kind of conversations, water cooler, hallway conversations every single day to help me go where I want to go in my real estate investing business? Whether you're just getting started or you're already a seasoned pro trying to elevate and go to that next step, the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be for you. What we'd like to do is offer you a free strategy session where someone from my team will jump on the phone. We'll talk about where you are, where you want to go, and how the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be the right fit for you. If you're saying to yourself, that sounds great, let's do it, go to mogulmembers.com, fill out your name and your contact information, and let's jump on the phone and let's chat. Let's see if we can help you go where you want to go this year. And so you got these two extreme schools of thought. So let's back up and let's talk about the person listening to our conversation right now, Henry. When should they decide to do one or the opposite extremes, and how should they approach it? Because I think there's three things that I think about categorically as if I'm in this person's shoes, right? The person listening. Number one, where do I live today? And so the first thing someone has to do is they have to evaluate their own local market. Do they live in what we would define as an easy profit city or not? So that's number one. Evaluate where you live locally. Number two, pick 1 to 3, what we'll call easy profit cities virtually. So your local market, if your local market is that, okay, that can be one of your ones, right? But evaluate, are you in an easy profit city? Step 2, pick 1 to 3 easy profit cities and launch your marketing. So launch your direct mail. Grid the market, figure out where the activity is, figure out where investors are making money, figure out how they're making money, figure out what they're making money on, and start your passive marketing. Send direct mail and start generating inbound leads. That's step 2. Step 3 is to launch a nationwide market agnostic wholesaling operation. 1, 2, 3. Now, a lot of times on that third step, you're not going to be driving and dropping direct mail. What you're going to do is you are either going to personally set up a nationwide online, pay-per-click, PPC, lead campaign, or you're going to buy on a pay-per-lead basis leads that come in from a lead seller. So somebody selling leads. So number 1, evaluate your market. Number 2, pick 1 to 3 easy profit cities for wholesaling. And number 3, launch a nationwide pay-per-lead or PPC, pay-per-click, lead generation strategy, and take a deal in any city. Every lead that comes in, evaluate it, right? That's how I like to think about and what I teach people to do in their business. How many people that you talk to on a regular basis are doing that? And I'm going to guess it's pretty low.
Probably, yeah, it's super low. Then they may be, even the low portion of that are only doing, a third of what you just said.
Yep.
A lot of the people that have been listening to us over the past year have transitioned their mindset away from, I got to be doing it in my backyard because it makes me feel comfortable. I've started to see the shift of they've recognized that.
Yep.
All of our students right now in the Mogul Academy are actively going outside of where they live. It just so happens that all of our recent students live in major cities like Denver.
Yep.
That it just wouldn't fit the model right now, at least.
Well, it's not an easy profit city.
Yeah. So they've launched out in direct mail and other forms of marketing into easy profit cities where they've picked, whether that's 1, 2, or 3 markets. But even past that, no one's really pushing towards steps 2 and 3, because I know where you're going with this is the reason why you cover indirect mail is because you are eventually going to start transitioning into learning about that market and then purchasing yourself in that market that you started targeting while PPC is running all the time with your wholesaling outfit.
Yep. Yeah, so, it's step 1, evaluate your local market. Step 2, pick 1 to 3 markets that you're going to go into from a wholesaling operation, 1 to 3 easy profit cities, and you're going to just skim the cream, 1 to 3 deals off the top every month in each of those markets. So on the low side, you're going to close 1 deal in each market, right? And let's just say that your average wholesale deal is $7,000, right? That's 3 deals a month, 1 in each of your 3 cities. That's $21,000 a month. And you're only caring about the easy deal, the laydown deal, right? And some months you get 0 deals in one market, you get 2 in another, and you get 1 in the third. but you're going to get 3 deals a month if you pick easy profit city and just follow the process. Now, the reason we tell people to go step 2 and pick the 1 to 3 easy profit cities is because as you move into step 3 and the nationwide wholesaling operation, you're going to be generating cash. You're going to be generating cash locally. You're going to be generating cash nationally. And we want you in 1 to 3 easy profit cities because step 2 or phase 2 of the Freedom Formula is to convert your cash into cash flow. And so we want you to learn a couple of easy profit cities where the price to rent ratios are solid, and the markets are below the median. The rental areas are below the median. Like that's where you're focusing on, so that you can start to build your rental portfolio. Because at the end of the day, all of this, like, why do we wholesale? To increase our active income, get some cash, make some money, so that ultimately we can achieve financial freedom and buy assets that pay us whether we're working or not. And there's a season and transition where that happens, where you go from most of your effort, 95% of your effort is on the active income side, to along the path, along the way, you'll transition where it becomes 50% active, 50% passive. And then financial freedom is you can go all the way to 90% passive and 10% active, just to stay in the game and to keep things going. And so there's a transition shift that happens. But that's what we teach people to do. Evaluate your local market and decide, is your local market one of the 3 easy profit cities? If it's not, if it is, then pick 2 more. If it's not, go pick 3 virtual markets that fall into our easy profit city category, and launch your passive marketing. Launch your direct mail in those 3 cities. And then launch your PPC and PPL nationwide, where you're doing exactly what I did. Lead comes in out of Vegas. House happens to be in Hesperia. I'm doing a one-off deal in that market.
It's just as passive as direct mail too, because they're filling out the information for you.
That's right.
So there's not much to really sift through.
Yeah.
On the phone, at least.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
You're still going to go through the script, but I'm glad you told the story that you did, because, you'll get into that situation with those types of leads because they've already given you a lot of the motivation answers through the PPC stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty fun to watch people. Like, this is phase 1 of the Freedom Formula: generate cash, right? And the completion milestone for phase 1 is $250,000 cash in the bank. Now, sometimes people don't always get to $250,000 cash in the bank because they build it up and then they go buy a rental. Then they build it up and then they go buy a rental. But the phase 1 completion milestone target is $250,000 cash in the bank. Well, if you follow this process of 1, 2, 3 that we just talked about, and you execute this strategy with a passive marketing, so a lot of times I'll call this passive wholesaling, right? And there's really no such thing as passive wholesaling, but what you're doing is you're doing passive lead generation in areas where your lead response rates are high enough that you're going to get, every time you drop direct mail, you're going to get at least one pretty highly motivated, fairly easy lay down deal. And what this puts you in a position to do is not have to beat yourself up so hard to convert every lead into an opportunity. It puts you in a position to kind of treat it like we just treated these 2 deals we're talking about. Here's what I can pay. If that works, great. If it doesn't, okay.
Yeah, and if Mike was here, he would hit on the aspect of for everyone that you take that attitude and it doesn't work out, it's a potential deal 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line.
Yep.
About my deal, I mean, the seller, title company had told me that the seller had made a funny comment about the sales price and how it was so low. Well, because he had it on the market for 6 months prior to that for a crazy price, and it just sat.
Yep.
So if he would have just listened or took the early offers that he got, he would have made much more money than he's making now.
Yep.
But because he wasn't as motivated then and wanted to see if it would sell for highest and best, he posted it on the market. Yep. So that could be the story for a lot of these PPC leads that, may not work out. But that doesn't mean that, because they're telling the same story to everyone else and it's just going to sit. So this is where the who are you following up with today comes into play. Because, if that happens 10 times over the next 3 months, well, that's 10 more people that you could be calling, every other month to see if they're ready at that point.
Well, that whole process, that stepped process that we talked about, evaluate your market, launch into 1 to 3 easy profit cities, and then go nationwide on a pay per lead or PPC approach. I mean, that's what I did back in the mid-teens, right? Post 2008, I launched my fund, and we had been virtual prior to 2008. And we were riding up that market wave, 2003, 4, 5, 6. Things were just appreciating crazy. And then I exited a lot of my real estate in 2006 before the crash. And then when the crash happened, I came back to Denver and we launched our fund locally because we were in a boom bust market that was on the bust side of the cycle. And so we came back to Denver, and then a few years later, as things stabilized, the market started to tighten up again, competition came back in, and prices started to move the other direction. I went virtual again. And what that led me to was a nationwide wholesaling operation. Again, this is back when this didn't exist. And in 2012, I released my first virtual market wholesaling course called Blitz Wholesaling, and I taught exactly how to do these strategies. I taught how to pick the right markets. I taught how to grid that market and find the hot spots of opportunity inside a market. I taught how to find the right price point, the right zip codes, the right everything, and do that nationwide. And what we were doing then is we were picking a city and we were launching into that city, and then we were picking the next, and then we were picking the next. And then that led into, okay, so now we've got 3 operating cities. Now we launched a nationwide leads campaign, and we did that in about 2014. So 2012, I taught the first course on Blitz Wholesaling. It just, what are we doing? Follow along. And I did that because I was buying and selling deals from my students. And it was a great little kind of coaching educational marketplace, right? Where we were making money together. And then the nationwide piece launched as technology got better and easier and pay-per-click got easier. And there was more opportunity to build a nationwide low bid price lead generation net. We did that in about 2014. And that led into a leads business. That led into selling leads across the country. And so today, that model exists. People understand the pay-per-lead model. Back when I did it as an early adopter, nobody was doing it. And so inside of our community, we had a semi-captive audience that was buying our leads. We had some outside investors, but we had a pay-per-lead model back in about 2014. And so all of the things that we teach and we model for students and that we do today, we've been doing for a couple decades, some of the things, a decade and a half, other things, at least a decade for most of the things. And the reason we do that is because it works. And if you take that approach, 1, 2, 3, that generates you cash, and it allows you to move to phase 2, which is create cash flow. And because you're in 1 to 3 easy profit cities where you are building the relationships that you just talked about, because in those 1 to 3 easy profit cities, you're going to build your buyers list, you're going to know the players, they're going to know you, and you're going to do consistent deals in those 3 markets. The one-off, the nationwide, you're not really going to build a buyer's list. You're not really going to build relationships per se. Now, there are title companies that will close all across the country, so you can still have a title company relationship and they can close everywhere. But for the local investor network that you build in the nationwide, that step 3 approach, it's a one-off deal, and you're just adding to your cash generation coffers.
Yeah, on to the next one. In the local markets where you get a little bit more intertwined.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for me, the end goal was to start buying there. So I needed to make a name for myself almost, so that, you know, people recognize that I'm a wholesaler, but also I purchase too.
Yep.
And they know that I can close, as well as, you know, it potentially turns into a secondary back-burning like marketing campaign, like this title company.
Yep.
And, you know, a wholesaler may come to me tomorrow, who knows, and says, you know, I'm struggling with a deal. And I can either give him feedback on, you know, we need to negotiate it down, and then I can get you a buyer. But because you're so intertwined in that market, things start organically just happening.
Yeah, exactly. And on the pay per lead side, you go in and you look at a lead. Like literally, what I'm talking about for those listening that don't maybe understand what a pay per lead is, there are companies that do nationwide lead generation, and you can literally log into the portal. You can look at the leads that are available. They hide certain data. They give you enough information to say, let me buy that lead. It appears that there's some motivation. It's been a verified address, a verified phone number, right? You've got the deal there, and you buy that lead. You're going to pay anywhere from $150 to $500 to buy that lead. You get on the phone, and before you buy the lead, before you buy the lead, you say, where is it? What price point does it appear to be in? What's the driving motivation? You look at some basics, and then you log into FreedomSoft, and you go to that zip code or to that market. And what I usually do is I'll go in and I'll run Zip Finder in that market, and I'll look and see, does the zip code where this lead is in show up in the hottest top 5 zip codes of Zip Finder? It's a quick validation that's going to tell me, yes, either there is or no, there is not investor activity in that zip code. So I'm going to look and I'm going to see in this local area, the zip code where the lead is located, where does it rank? If it ranks at the bottom of the list, i.e. no investors are buying in there,
don't buy the lead.
Don't buy the lead. If it ranks towards the top, above the 50% spot, and you can see good investor activity and hot spots in the market, buy the lead. Because you now know you've validated that where this lead is located, if you can get it for the right price, there are plenty of investors that will buy that deal from you downfield.
Yep.
That's the key.
Yep, it's the same concept of the conversation on the phone. You know right off the bat, and no emotion, you're going to buy the lead or you're not going to buy the lead.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think this is probably a good spot to wrap this one up. I think we gave people some things to think about and, you know, an approach to start their 2024 with, right? And that's the key. And this is the stuff that we teach people inside of the Real Estate Mogul Academy. And so we teach people how to build their real estate investing business to first generate cash and second, create cash flow. And there's a proven approach to do it that works again and again and again. And it doesn't have people chasing, you know, all sorts of different types of strategies and all sorts of different types of deals and all sorts of different types of things. It's very focused. It's very repeatable. You can mentally wrap your head around it and then execute.
And master it.
Yep. And mastering something and executing consistently, repeatedly is the key. So, all right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, give us a thumbs up and like this video. If you would, share this on your social media and let others know about the show. That's going to keep us motivated to come back and keep giving you value week after week. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening in. This is Rob Swanson and the crew checking out for the Real Estate Mogul Show. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Peace.
Hey friends, Rob Swanson here. Let me jump in and talk to you really quick about the Real Estate Mogul Academy. You might be sitting back listening to this and saying, how do I get in proximity with these guys? How do I have these kind of conversations, water cooler, hallway conversations every single day to help me go where I want to go in my real estate investing business? Whether you're just getting started or you're already a seasoned pro trying to elevate and go to that next step, the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be for you. What we'd like to do is offer you a free strategy session where someone from my team will jump on the phone. We'll talk about where you are, where you want to go, and how the Real Estate Mogul Academy might be the right fit for you. If you're saying to yourself, that sounds great, let's do it, go to mogulmembers.com, fill out your name and your contact information, and let's jump on the phone and let's chat. Let's see if we can help you go where you want to go this year.